Hello everybody, welcome to another watercolor tutorial. We are painting another loose pine tree landscape today. This is one because I painted one this month. I don't know if you'll see it before or after this one, but it was a lot of fun and it was quick. Well, still 30 minutes long, but quick for my misty pine tree tutorials, and I thought I would do another similar type one. So why don't we just get right into it? So the first thing that I'm doing here, I want to create my sky. It's going to be like a nice blue sky. Oh, I'm going to just zoom out because this piece of paper is a little bit bigger than the previous one I was using. I am actually going to flip this over. This is going to be my sky because there's no green paint on this tape. I'm reusing the tape. And I guess it wouldn't matter that much if there was green in my sky, since the rest of the painting is basically going to be green, but I'm taking some nude. So I'm just creating the background right now. This kind of reminds me of a beach landscape, the nude with the blue. And we are going to take green and blend that in there as well. Now the green should be the majority of the painting. I realize that it is not in mine. I may or may not fix that. I'm going to think about how I want to proceed with this painting. Switching to my size 14. The only reason I was using my size 8 for that is because this brush today has been holding green watercolor like crazy, and it's driving me crazy because I am painting a blue sky and it's turning green. So that is obviously not what I want. Kind of like what's happening there. But anyway, we'll leave that for now. We'll just work with what we've got. Okay, so it's all covered now. Don't be so fussy about the background like I just was. Like, that was totally not necessary. What we're gonna do now is add some features, some highlights. Not highlights, they're definitely not highlights. We're just gonna add darker and darker pigments to our painting. So I'm taking some more green, mixing it with like a little bit of black. And my pine tree landscape is gonna be, whoops, it's kind of going to be like this, or what I want it to be is this swooping situation. So it's gonna have a lot of swoops like that, and then it's gonna look like that. That is the intention behind this. So we want that to all spread out nicely, and as that's doing that, I'm adding plenty more black to my green. It's almost mostly black. And I want to go over those, basically the same brush strokes. I'm going over the same thing, but with my darker pigment. And I'm hoping that that black will spread out nicely and not stay the way that it looks right now, because I want it to look more natural. Maybe I'll help it along by kind of dabbing. Whoops. Okay, so you can keep doing that until you're happy with the opacity, how dark it is. I just think, I want to add more black, but I feel like because of the type of painting this is, I can't like dab it on, I can here it'll be fine. But if I do that here, I won't maintain those fluid round brush strokes. So I think I'm just gonna have to stick with what I've got, unless, yeah. I'm really trying to maintain that shape, but it's really challenging. So I'm gonna just let that do its thing. I'm gonna leave that the way it is. So the next thing we want to do is paint our pine trees, of course. Now, up here it'll be fine because this is pretty dry, but I'm nervous down here that it won't be dry enough and they'll spread into blobs. Now I do want to use like my green. And as I said in a previous tutorial, I'm starting from the top and moving downwards to create the trunk of my pine tree. And that is because, as I explained previously, if you do the opposite, where you lift your paintbrush is where it's going to create this blob. And we don't want that. Like, just as an example, so let's say stop here. See how when I lifted my brush there, this is a lot more rounded? If we did that at the top of our pine tree, it wouldn't look very good, because like a pine tree at the tip is supposed to be pointy. So that's why we start at the top and move our way downwards to create the effect that we're going for. So I'm using green up here for my pines, but I don't like how light that is. So I'm mixing that green with a little bit of black and then also another type of green to give it a bit more color. So that's a nice color, I think. And because it's still a little bit wet, these lines, these horizontal lines that we're painting, will naturally kind of blend together into the background, or they should at least. So the pine trees will look a lot more natural than if it was dry and you use this same technique. So, all right, where else are we gonna paint these guys? I'll have another tall one here. I'll do a close-up-ish so you can see exactly what my brush strokes look like. They're just these horizontal lines that progressively get longer or wide, like in relation to the tree, wider as you move down the trunk, and then eventually it'll blend into this if it's sufficient. It won't stay like this. It'll blend out, which is nice. So mine is not quite dark enough, so I'm just doing that, adding a little bit more pigment to darken it. So I'll zoom back out so you can see the bigger picture. I also want to have some down here. So I hope that this is dry enough. Oh, not really. Yikes, okay. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't really like it. That was a bit too dark for my liking. It's a bit too wet, and I don't think that the paper is carrying the water too well as it did up here. So I'm getting a bit lazy with my technique. It's starting to come together nicely, I think. You can just keep adding them like wherever you want, as many as you want. Just the only thing you have to be mindful of is, of course, the how dry your paper is. Because up here it's probably already quite dry. Oh, no, it's not too bad. But it is much drier, so I have to be a lot more careful with my line work, because whatever I paint here is probably not going to blend out as easy. So So I'm not gonna do any more up there because I don't want to ruin it. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then we might add some more darker ones on top. Although I'm kind of tempted to leave it this like pretty blurry way. I'm gonna add another dark one here. All right, I'm gonna let this dry, and then we'll come back and see if I want to add anything. Okay, so I believe it is dry. I hope it is dry. And we can add some dark pine trees on top if we want to. So the difference, so what I learned, is instead of doing that like horizontal back and forth, for these pine trees, I angle, like I do each side separately and I angle them upwards just slightly, which makes the tree look a little bit more realistic and less juvenile. The reason why the previous technique worked in that context is because the background was a little bit wet, and so all those little tiny gaps in between each horizontal line filled in nicely to create a very realistic pine tree look. And obviously when it's dry, it's not going to do that the same thing. It's just going to stay the way that you paint it. So be mindful of that when you're painting your darker trees on top, if you choose to do so, because it only takes one tree to ruin all your hard work. So about halfway down, I started angling those branches downwards until I met the bottom of the piece of paper. Like so. And let's see, I think I should do another one, because if that one's by itself, it's kind of lonely. So I'll do a shorter one beside it. Got a little bit lazy at the bottom there. And I'm gonna do one more just on the right side, just to balance it out. like so. Oh, that looks bare by itself. I'm tempted to add another one there or somewhere. No, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it because that's enough. We have enough pine trees here. The other thing you can do, which I'm kind of tempted to do, is to add little flying birds in the distance, which I am just going to quickly do now that I'm thinking of it. Just make them very small and barely visible. I'm using my size quadruple 0, my favorite detail brush. And you can make them slightly different sizes, the birds. So that should be good. I think I'm happy with that. Peel the tape off to reveal your clean edges. And you've got yourself a nice misty, moody forest. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and I will be sure to see you in the next tutorial.